and welcome to this next flipped preaching video. My name's Andy and we're going to look at the gospel passage for the Sunday to come ahead of time to try and unpick it before we get to it. So this week it's Mark 11, 1 to 11, and this is Palm Sunday, the Sunday before Easter. Now this is one of those times in the year when we do a special kind of church. You know, we've built up a church tradition around Palm Sunday. And so what we're going to do is just to try and put that to one side for a minute and just have a look at the Bible text and see where that takes us. Okay, so this is the story of Jesus beginning his entry into Jerusalem for the last week of his life before the crucifixion, which is why we do it the week before Easter, obviously. Now, it's a passage which is steeped in the Old Testament. The original hearers, readers of this would have known all this stuff, but perhaps today, because it's so much further on and we've lost our Old Testament knowledge, we need a bit of reminding, perhaps. I certainly do. So we're going to split it into kind of three chunks. The first chunk is all the details about arranging for the donkey colt that Jesus was going to ride on. And this is the biggest chunk of this. There's far more attention paid to this than the actual riding into Jerusalem, or riding towards Jerusalem. Actually, he doesn't actually make it into Jerusalem on the donkey. And what happens next. So this is almost like the main emphasis of the passage in a way. And Jesus is really mysterious. He makes all kinds of obscure commands to his followers, saying, go and you'll find, go into the village, you'll find a donkey, untie it and bring it to me. If anyone says, why are you doing that? Say the Lord needs it. And they go, and the exact same things happen. They find the donkey, they bring it back to Jesus. So what was going on here? Did Jesus use a kind of supernatural prophetic foreknowledge? Was he able to see what was going on in this other village beforehand? Had he done a kind of scouting operation? Had he kind of gone ahead and arranged it somehow? Had he kind of fixed it up with somebody in this village? We don't know. I've included a bit earlier from Mark 2:25, which at first glance doesn't seem to connect to it. It says, "So and Jesus said to them, 'Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry in need of food?' What they did was they went into the place of worship and took the bread from the altar and ate it." Jesus was encouraging this kind of rebellious attitude to religion back in this first bit, in this early bit in Mark's Gospel. But the word saying that David was in need of food, that's the same word, and it's quite a rare word, I would think. The same word that Jesus is using here, saying, go and get this donkey because the Lord needs it. And in the David story, taking the bread, that was when David was a kind of resistance. I don't want to use the word fighter, but he was kind of operating as a renegade, undercover. So perhaps we're meant to tie the two together here, that Jesus' action saying, I need the donkey, is kind of like this quiet, sneaky, doing stuff under wraps, for now at least. This happens in, the geography is quite important in this. This happens in a village called Bethphage, which we don't know about from any other place. It's it's lost in the mists of time. And Bethany, and near the Mount of Olives, and that's really significant. In the book of Zechariah, one of these Old Testament prophecies which I mentioned at the start, it said that one day This is thinking about the future, God bringing his rule and authority back on earth, God bringing his kingdom. It says, on that day his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives, which lies before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives will be split in two from east to west by a very wide valley. So there's going to be the earth will shake when the Messiah stands on the Mount of Olives. And that's what we're meant to recall here. This is the start of the shaking of the earth. A bit earlier in Zechariah 9, it says that rejoice greatly, Jerusalem, your king comes to you, triumphant and victorious, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. Which is why why it had to be a donkey. This is fulfilling this prophecy from Zechariah. And a donkey was a far more, a much humbler, low-level, gentler form of transport. Zechariah goes on, he will cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the war horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off, and he shall command peace to the nations. By riding a donkey, this king prophesied in Zechariah will do away with war horses and chariots and battle bows. The donkey is deliberately peaceful, gentle, as opposed to the military. In today's language, that would be tanks and fighter planes and nuclear weapons. God will do away with those and come in peace. What they would have known at the time, which therefore didn't even get mentioned, is that this day was an important day in Jerusalem, because this was the day, a week before the Passover, when Pilate came back. Now Pilate was the Roman sort of governor who was who ruled the area on behalf of the Roman emperor. And Pilate didn't live in Jerusalem. It wasn't a very nice place to live. He lived on a nice seaside resort about 60 miles away. But he came back to Jerusalem when there could be trouble. So he came back every Passover feast when people from across the country flooded into Jerusalem to take part in this festival. And he made a point of entering Jerusalem a week before, coming from the west, which is where his home was, and he came on a war horse, and he came with a column of cavalry, showing the strength of the Roman Empire. And this was happening at the same time that Jesus came in from the other direction, from the east, on a little donkey. Perhaps there's something important in this, that Jesus is satirizing this, on the one hand, superficially impressive display of power from Pilate and the Roman Empire, and Jesus is coming in a very, very different way. At the end, it says he entered Jerusalem and nothing happens. Nothing happens. He has a look around, it was late, they were hungry, so they went back to Bethany. It's a bit anticlimactic, but maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point of this, that it wasn't about a military victory. There were not many decades before this, there were the Maccabean rebellion. Before the Roman Empire, Jerusalem was had been invaded by a different foreign power, and the Jewish people created a kind of rebellion army, and they did ride into Jerusalem and took the temple back. But Jesus in here does it very differently. He doesn't ride in a military strength. He doesn't go to the temple and restore it. He instead has a look around the temple and doesn't seem to do anything. But as we know, he would later go and flip the tables and undermine, disrupt what was going on in the temple. Jesus was doing it his own way, very different to the way that people had done it before. So much in this passage. So a few questions to think about. One, do you think that God makes secret plans to bless you and the world? I like the sense that Jesus was kind of operating below the scenes, fixing things so that it could be great. Does God make secret plans that we're unaware of to bless us in the future? 2, what do you think about the significance of it being a baby donkey, not a war horse? Think about the Pilate and the Zechariah prophecies. And why the anticlimax? Why does nothing happen when Jesus makes this show of entry towards Jerusalem? Why does nothing happen? Why does it fizzle out? Or was that the point? And finally, why is this good news for you and I today? How does this help us to live better? Okay, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I'd love to hear what you think. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.